I'm going to quickly go through this mad minute, and then afterwards, if you have questions on any of them I answer, please feel free to raise your hand and I'll clarify for you. 4 is closest to what percent of 16? That's 25%. 4 is closest to what percent of 38? That is 10%. 4 is closest to what percent of 9? That's about 50%. It's about half. 4 is closest to what percent of 5? That's about 80%, so that's close to 75%. 10 is closest to what percent of 22? That's about half, 50%. 10 is closest to what percent of 38? It's about a quarter, so then that's going to be 25%. 10 is closest to what percent of 13? 10 is close to what percent of 13? That's about 75%. 10 is closest to what percent of 93? Well, that's closest to 10%. 5 is closest to what percent of 9? That's close to 50%. 5 is closest to what percent of 11? What percent of 11 is 5 is close to? Again, that's about 50%. Let's move on. Let's look at the rest. Let's make sure we get this right. Number 11. 5 is closest to what percent of 22? That would be closest to 25%. 5 is closest to what percent of 7? That's close, more leaning towards 75%. 12 is closest to what percent of 51? That's about a quarter, 25%. 12 is closest to what percent of 15? 75%. 12 is closest to what percent of 12? About 10%. 12 is closest to what percent of 22? That is about a quarter. No, excuse me, that is about a half, 50%. 23 is closest to what percent of 31? That's close to 75%. 23 is what percent of what was 50? That's 50%. 23 is closest to what percent of 200? That's closest to 10%. And last but not least, 23 is closest to what percent of 96? 25%. For all of these questions, if you're using this chart here, and keep in mind that if you divide by 2, 50. It's about 1/10 of it, 10%. 1/4, 25%, and so on and so forth. Meet you on the next page in 3, 2, and 1.